Sam Wagner. Our first broadcast made a huge impact on our viewers and audience about narcissism. And I had so many questions, and I will start to ask my questions which came from my audience. And more, you can watch Sam Wagner's YouTube channel because there are answers for your questions and even those you haven't thought of yet. And first question I'm asking. Here, the person asked the false self but made an explanation also. It said that the one who appears to be the perfect person, impressive and trustworthy in outside. But in his secret world, he is cheating, scamming, sex with money and flirting with anyone you can think. Is he using the false self because he knows where to act and how to act?
No, that has nothing to do with the false self. This is a psychopath. Now, we make a distinction in psychology between persona, it was first described by Jung, or mask. Mask is a term used by Irving Goffman, the sociologist. These are facades, these are acts that we use when we interact with other people. Everyone has a persona or a mask, even healthy people. You don't interact the same way with your family members as you do with strangers. You don't interact the same way in the cinema as you do in the workplace. Wherever you go, you have a specific mask, a specific persona that you're using. And that has nothing to do with the false self. The psychopath uses a mask of benevolence, or what Helvig Kleckley called, in 1942, the mask of sanity. So the psychopath presents a mask. I'm sane, I'm stable, I'm safe, I can be trusted, I will help you, and so on and so forth. And that way, by being ostentatiously, overtly pro-social, communal, altruistic, helpful, kind, nice, empathic, compassionate, caring, etc., etc., that way the psychopath acquires your trust and leverages this trust in order to obtain some goal. The goal could be your money, the goal could be to have sex with you, the goal could be to gain access to something or someone. The goal could be anything. Power, usually. The main obsession of the psychopath is power. But this has nothing to do, or very little to do, with the false self. The false self, first of all, is a construct, a personality construct that is generated or created very early on in life. Usually the false self is created by a child when the child is 2 to 3 years old, in the phase known as separation individuation. In that stage in life, the child creates a godlike figure. That godlike figure is everything the child is not. The child is helpless. The godlike figure is omnipotent, all-powerful. The child cannot predict the behaviors of adults. So, and the godlike figure, the false self, is omniscient, all-knowing. The child perceives itself as unworthy, as bad, as ugly, as stupid. This is known as internalized bad object. The false self is exactly the opposite. The false self is brilliant and perfect and a genius and so on. So the child creates a god, a divinity, godlike figure. Initially, this godlike figure is the imaginary friend of the child. And the role of this new god, new deity, is to protect the child from abuse and trauma, from the dysfunction of the family, from unreasonable demands by parents, and from the fear and terror of existing in such an unpredictable, capricious, and arbitrary environment. So then you have this godlike figure, it's all-powerful, it's all-present, and it protects you. It's an imaginary friend which protects you. But gradually, the child says to itself, why not become this God? And what the child does, the child sacrifices itself. So you're beginning to see that the false self is a kind of religion. It's a primitive, infantile religion. The child creates a God, and then the child has human sacrifice. The child sacrifices itself to the God. The child kills, assassinates the true self. And what remains is the false self, and the child merges with the false self. He's digested, absorbed, subsumed by the false self. And then the child is gone. Nothing is left. There's only the false self. The false self is therefore not a mask. It's not a facade. It's not an act. It is a substitute for the person that used to exist. It is now the only entity. It is the exclusive personality. And in this sense, the narcissist is the false self. He cannot take it off. He doesn't have a discrepancy between what's happening inside and what's happening outside. What this person asked, this person described a situation where something is happening inside, which is not the same as what is happening outside. There is a gap between the two. That's not the case with the narcissist. There's no gap in the narcissist. What you see is what you get, in the sense that the narcissist is the false self. The narcissist believes his fantasies. He lives inside the fantasy. He doesn't realize that there's any reality outside the fantasy. And the false self is a fantasy figment, element of the fantasy. And so the narcissist is not saying to himself, I'm cunning, I'm scheming, I'm going to take your money, but I'm going to pretend that I'm your friend. I'm going to be no, that's not. That's a psychopath. The narcissist is who he is at all times.
For example, a narcissist who cheats, but who looks so loyal, for example, it isn't an example for this? Or is it a narcissist with psychopath tendencies?
No. A narcissist never cheats, never deceives, and very rarely lies.
For him.
Yes, as far as a narcissist is concerned, whatever he says is true. As far as a narcissist is concerned, his fantasy is the reality. As far as a narcissist is concerned, if he makes you a promise, he intends to keep it. As far as a narcissist is concerned, when he's telling you something about himself or about his reality, or he is fully committed to it, he fully believes it. He never perceives himself as deceiving or as lying or as manipulating.
Yes.
He is what he is, whereas the psychopath is not what he is.
But for example, when a narcissist cheat, they think that they don't cheat.
Cheat, you mean sexually?
Yes, for example, they cheat, but they think that they don't cheat. But they don't admit this to their partner. They hide it, but they know they must hide it, for example.
Yes, well, when whatever the narcissist does, he constructs a fantasy. The fantasy is intended to provide a context within which the narcissist's actions are justified. So it's a self-justifying narrative.
I cheat because of this.
I cheat because I'm not getting what I need at home. Or I cheat because my wife doesn't mind, or my husband doesn't mind. Or I cheat, so there will be always a fantasy, and it will not be the same, like a psychopath fantasy, because psychopath fantasy is a lie. The psychopath knows the difference between reality and fantasy. He can tell the difference. Whereas a narcissist cannot. The narcissist confabulates. Confabulation, actually, confabulation is a psychological dynamic in psychosis. It is borrowed from schizophrenia. Schizophrenics confabulate. Confabulation is when you create an alternative reality that is plausible, that is probable, that makes sense, and then you believe it. You create it, and then instantly you believe it. And for you it becomes a fact. And then you're committed to this confabulation, to this new story. And you refuse to admit that you made it up, that there is another reality. You are fully committed to the new story.
For example, there is another question. It's like that, I think. They say that it's obvious, but denying it. Deny the evidence, for example, and running away and blaming. They wrote like this. Then this is a psychopathic action, not narcissist action.
No, that's actually narcissistic. If I were to tell you, look at the moon, look at a beautiful moon. You will deny it.
There is no moon now.
There's no moon.
Yes.
You will insist, you will deny it, because that's your reality. Your reality, there's a sun. There's no moon. And never mind what I tell you, never mind which evidence, you will insist that there is no moon. There is a sun. The narcissist, for the narcissist, his fantasy
It's true.
is the reality.
Okay.
And when you try to confront the narcissist, he would deny it. He is what we call cathected. He is emotionally invested in the veracity and the truthfulness of the fantasy. If you challenge the fantasy, you are challenging the narcissist's reality testing. You are telling the narcissist, you're sick, you're delusional. So the narcissist will never allow you to challenge the fantasy. Now here's the difference, maybe to make it easier for the viewers. A psychopath would say, I'm cheating on my wife because I'm not getting what I need at home. But the psychopath would know that this is not true, or that this is just an excuse, or that this is not reality, or whatever. A narcissist initially would be the same like the psychopath. He will say, I'm cheating because my wife is not giving me what I need. Same like the psychopath, initially. But then a minute later, he would believe it. The psychopath would never believe it. The psychopath knows he's lying. He knows this. But a second later, the narcissist would fully believe it, and he would defend himself. Yes, I insist, this is the truth. If you say differently, you are delusional, you are lying, or you've been brainwashed by my wife, you don't know. This is the so he becomes emotionally invested, very protective of the fantasy. Because the alternative is to admit that he is seriously mentally ill.
If there's something like that, do they live in narcissistic injury? For example, if they can't deny because there are too many evidences, do they have injury or collapse or something else?
Only in very, very, very extreme cases, known as narcissistic mortification, is there a situation where the narcissist is coerced to abandon the fantasy. You must understand that the fantasy is not only public-facing. The fantasy is not only intended to convince other people or to share it with other people. The fantasy is mostly protective of the self-concept of the narcissist.
Okay.
The main role of the fantasy is to convince the narcissist that whatever he thinks about himself is right. If he thinks he's a genius, then he would have a fantasy that he's a genius. It's about him, not about you. The fantasy that he's a genius would also convince you that he's a genius. But that is not the important thing. The important thing is to convince himself that he's a genius. So if you challenge the fantasy, you're challenging the self-concept of the narcissist.
You're attacking his...
Yes, you're attacking his essence. His self-concept, his view of himself, his cognitive distortions. It's an attack not on his social role, it's an attack on the integrity of his self-image and self-perception, how he sees himself. Fantasy, the narcissist fantasy is mostly about maintaining an inner equilibrium, an inner balance. Because the personality of the narcissist is very, very fragile, very vulnerable. And any information from the outside that challenges this narrative is very threatening, and the narcissist will become very aggressive in rejecting it. The only case where the narcissist's defenses crumble, collapse, this is a process known as decompensation. Decompensation is when the defenses of the narcissist fall apart. The only case is narcissistic mortification. Narcissistic mortification is when the narcissist is suddenly, that's always happens suddenly, attacked, criticized, and above all, humiliated, especially in public. When this happens, the narcissist's defenses collapse, decompensation, and the narcissist remains without any interface, without any firewall. And reality rushes in like tsunami.
Even he can't deny it.
And he cannot deny it anymore. The fantasy collapses. He cannot deny, and he comes face to face with himself. Not with reality, not with the outside, not with the people who humiliated him, but with himself.
Until that time, he didn't realize it.
Yes. So, for example, a narcissist could say, I'm a genius. Okay? I'm a genius. Then one day he gives, a lecture. And he gives a lecture, and then someone gets up and attacks the narcissist, humiliates him, shows that the narcissist has no idea what he's talking about, that he's an idiot, he's ignorant, and so on. This is done in public. The shame, the humiliation is enormous. The narcissist cannot defend himself because the person who is attacking him is a world authority on the subject. At that moment, the fantasy collapses, the fantasy that the narcissist is a genius collapses, and the narcissist comes face to face with the realization that he is not a genius. The whole self-concept evaporates, and narcissist remains totally defenseless against the internal shame. Narcissism is a defense mostly against shame. The internal shame overwhelms the narcissist, and the narcissist becomes essentially borderline. His emotions begin to dysregulate. He develops suicidal ideation. The risk of losing the fantasy is a life-threatening risk. When the narcissist loses the fantasy, he wants to die. He wants to die because the way the narcissist really is never meets the expectations of what he should be. The gap between what he is and what he believes that he should be is too big. This is the grandiosity gap. It's too big. So the narcissist never says, okay, I'm not bad, I know some things, I'm okay. No. Narcissist cannot say I'm okay. I'm number one, I'm a genius, I'm amazing, I'm the strongest. It's always unrealistic. The self-concept is unrealistic. So when the narcissist comes face to face with himself because of the collapse of the defenses, the decompensation, the gap between who he truly is and who he imagines himself to be is enormous. And he cannot accept this gap. It creates shame. He's ashamed of himself. Narcissists are constantly ashamed of who they are. And they are trying to create a facade, that is the false self, of who they are not. It's a denial. Narcissism is self-denial, constantly, self-betrayal. And then when you come face to it as a narcissist, you just want to die.
I try to think it, I watched so many videos of yours, and I'm still not understanding everything. Then the thing that you told now, the shared fantasy collapse, and not to collapse this shared fantasy, do they use the supply, as you found the word, supply? They need supply to share the fantasy? Why do they need supply always?
Now, first of all, there is a big debate whether narcissism is a genetically transmitted, and there's a hereditary component, whether it is the outcome of brain abnormalities in function or structure. There's a big debate about it, whether it's a biological or neurobiological condition, or whether it is a reaction to early childhood abuse and trauma. There's a debate about this. I personally think, that narcissism is genetically inherited, and I do think it is correlated with some brain abnormalities. I believe that. However, unfortunately, we do not have any evidence for this. We do not have serious, rigorous, longitudinal, blinded experiments and studies that support this, period. Many self-styled experts and claim that narcissism is genetic. There's no proof for this. There is, however, huge amount of proof over 150 years that in the history of people with pathological narcissism, there is always dysfunctional parenting, bad parenting, or dysfunctional family environment. Always, 100%, no exception. And so, when the child finds itself in a situation where the parent doesn't know how to be a parent, it doesn't have to be a bad parent. It doesn't have to be a parent who physically abuses the child or sexually abuses the child or psychologically and verbally tortures the child. It doesn't have to be. It could be a parent who is overprotective, doesn't allow the child to play with other children or to go out to the world. It could be a parent who is using the child to realize the dreams of the parent. The parent has a dream, and the child will be the instrumentalizes the child. It could be a parent who is immature and insecure, and so the child becomes the parent of the parent, parentifying. There are many situations where it appears that the parents are good parents, but actually they're not good parents. They're abusive and traumatizing because they don't allow the child to separate from them and to become an individual. They breach the boundaries of the child. So in all these situations, the child has to compensate. And we say that pathological narcissism is compensatory. It's a compensation. The child cannot become. The parental environment doesn't allow the child to become a person, to acquire personhood. So the child remains connected to the parents somehow, as an extension, as an instrument, and that creates a lot of anger, rage, the child is rageful, and a lot of shame. And so what the child does, the child invents this God, this false self, that is the substitute for the child, because the false self cannot be traumatized. The false self cannot be abused because it's God. Never mind what the parents do. It doesn't affect the child because now he's God. But the child knows, initially, the child knows that this God, this imaginary friend, is imaginary. The child realizes this initially.
Until that time, they know it.
Initially, the child knows it, yes. And so the child knows it. The child at least knows that this imaginary friend is not him. Even healthy children, normal children,
Can have friends.
they have imaginary friends, but they know that the imaginary friend is not them.
Yes.
They know it's me and this friend.
Yes.
They give this imaginary friend a name, they talk to the imaginary friend, they play with the imaginary friend, but they know that the imaginary friend is something else. It's not they. Same with the false self. Initially, when the child invents the false self, the child knows there's me and there is the false self. He knows this. But at some point, the child sacrifices itself and becomes the false self.
At what ages?
About 3 years old. The child sacrifices it and becomes the false self, but the doubt remains. This realization that the false self used to be separate from me, it remains in my mind as a narcissist, as a child who is becoming a narcissist. The child is saying, wait a minute, until yesterday, this false self was not me. Now, this false self is me, but wait a minute, but it was not me. It is me, it's not me. So the child needs to make opinion poll, anketa. The child needs to ask other people, is the false self me or not? So, for example, if the false self is...
Then doubt never ends. Doubt never ends.
Yes, never ends. Never ends. That's why it's a fragile structure. It's a structure that is open to attack. Any doubt, any disagreement, any criticism, it provokes. The narcissist says, maybe it's true. Oh my God, maybe it's true. Maybe this criticism is right. No. I cannot accept this. I must prove that it's wrong. And so what the narcissist does, he goes to other people and he asks, excuse me, do you think my false self is false or true? So narcissist says, as a child, the narcissist invents a false self that is a genius. Okay, the false self is a genius. Then the child merges with the false self, but he remembers that the false self used to be something else. So then he comes to you. Excuse me, am I a genius? And you say, yes, of course you're a genius. This is narcissistic supply. Narcissistic supply is input or feedback that informs the narcissist that the false self is not false.
And he thinks, or he or she, it doesn't matter, thinks that they are charming, good people,
They
genius.
doubt it. So they need other people to tell them. They doubt it, so they need other people to tell them all the time.
Constantly. And they can't stay alone. Can they stay alone?
Exactly like borderlines, narcissists cannot stay alone. We used to think that borderline and narcissism are two separate phenomena and not connected much. But starting with the work of Otto Kernberg in the 1970s, and definitely today, we realize that narcissism and borderline are probably two sides of the same coin. That if you stress the narcissist, challenge the narcissist, undermine the self-concept, cause narcissistic modification, the narcissist becomes borderline. And if you challenge the borderline, if you stress her, if you abandon her, if you reject her, she becomes very narcissistic, very grandiose. So we realize that, and Kernberg suggested that narcissism is a defense against the borderline state. And so today we think it's more or less the same family, or very close twins, kind of twins. And so the narcissist goes around and he asks people to confirm to him that the false self is not false and the fantasy is reality. And this is the process of narcissistic supply, essentially.
That's why they can't stay alone, because they need a person.
Coming back to this question. The borderline cannot stay alone for one reason and the narcissist for another. The borderline, the person with borderline personality organization, because you could have borderline organization without borderline disorder. But the minute you have a borderline personality organization, you cannot stay alone. Why you cannot be alone? Because all your internal psychological functions, we call them ego functions, all the internal psychological dynamics and functioning and roles and so on, you outsource them, you externalize them as a borderline. You have an intimate partner. So you expect the intimate partner to regulate your emotions.
Regulate your emotions.
To stabilize your moods. You expect the intimate partner to take care of your moods, to make you happy, not to make you depressed. You expect the intimate partner to stabilize your emotions.
Giving supply to you.
Supply is narcissism. In borderline, the expectation is external regulation. The intimate partner or the special person, they should externally regulate the borderline.
How can they do that?
Well, the intimate partner, for example, can make the borderline happy, prevent her from being depressed. When she becomes dysregulated, when she's overwhelmed by shame or guilt or fear, or he can calm her down. He can. So he is anxiolytic.
Like a baby.
He's reducing anxiety. Yes, it's an infantile structure. So she outsources her mind. She gives her mind to another person, and she says, "This is my mind. Is very fragile, very dysregulated, very unstable, very labile. Please take my mind and make me calm, reduce my anxiety, make me safe, feel safe." And this is the borderline dynamic. After that, there is another dynamic. We're not going to it if you don't wish. The narcissist essentially does the same. He takes his mind and his ego functions, and he gives it to another person. And the reason is also for external regulation. But whereas the borderline wants the intimate partner, for example, to regulate her emotions and her moods, the narcissist wants the external person to regulate the sense of self-worth and the self-concept. Narcissist doesn't care about emotions, doesn't care about moods. He cares about his inflated, grandiose, fantastic image. So he expects the outside person to regulate this, to keep it stable. So if I think I'm a genius, I expect the source of narcissistic supply, the external regulator, to keep telling me that I'm a genius all the time.
You are perfect.
You're perfect, you're a genius, you're amazing, you'd never fail, you're infallible, you're tak, 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 all the time, all the time, all the time. Drip by drip method in agriculture, all the time, so that I can keep a stable view of myself as a genius. The borderline, if I'm her intimate partner, she would expect me to stabilize her moods because she's always cycling. She's up and down, euphoria, dysphoria, depression, you know. So she would want me to stabilize this, and she would want me to stabilize her emotion. She doesn't care about self-concept or self-image. This is the big difference between narcissists and borderlines. But both of them need people outside to stabilize the internal environment. They don't have internal regulation. They need regulation from the outside.
If there is no one around, a narcissist can stay with his false self alone, for example.
He can. Most narcissists, not all, but most narcissists are capable of something that I was the first to describe, and it is called self-supply. When the narcissist loses all the sources of supply, initially there's a phase of self-supply. The narcissist begins to serve as his own external regulator. So the narcissist, for example, would, if his self-concept is self-concept of genius, so he would make a YouTube video and he would watch himself and he would say, wow, only a genius could have made this. He would tell himself, sometimes verbally aloud. He would say, wow, what a genius. Only a genius could have made this video. It's a form of self-supply.
Self-supply is so harmless.
Self-supply, in my view, is the only realistic solution for narcissistic pathology. Narcissism cannot be cured. Some behaviors of narcissists, abrasive, antisocial behaviors, can be modified in the short term. But there is no healing. There's no substantial transformation of people with narcissistic disorders. The only solution for narcissists not to hurt other people, not to harm other people, the only solution for a narcissist to become pro-social, integrated in the community, not to damage other people, is to self-supply. Now, luckily, there are several ways of self-supplying, not only what I described. What I described is one way, the most primitive way. But there are other ways to self-supply, and most narcissists are capable of this. However, it's very possible for self-supply to fail. Actually, the likelihood that self-supply fails is high, as the longer the period. So initially a narcissist is getting supply from other people. Then these other people disappear. And he has nobody. So he starts to self-supply. He can self-supply 1 day, 2 days, 1 month, 2 months, but he cannot self-supply forever. He needs at some point to establish new sources of supply, or maybe a new narrative. So the narcissist would transition from cerebral to somatic. His first self-concept, grandiose self-concept, was I'm a genius. The second grandiose self-concept, I'm sexually irresistible. So he could transition from one narrative to another. He transforms. He becomes from cerebral to somatic, from covert to overt. That's rare. But from overt to covert is very common. From antisocial to prosocial. So there are various stages. Narcissistic supply, then you have self-supply, then you have type inconstancy. The narcissist switches from one type to another, trying another.
They change the supply.
And then if this fails, you have collapse, narcissistic collapse. Narcissistic collapse is a major condition. It's a very bad
hard,
situation.
I think, because there are too many supply types.
No, actually all narcissists collapse from time to time.
It can be in one time in lifetime, or
No.
they can collapse.
A typical narcissist would collapse once or twice a decade at least. And the reason is that narcissists alienate their sources of supply. The sources of supply feel exhausted, depleted, ignored, abused, exploited. The narcissist doesn't invest in the source of supply. He regards the source of supply as a service provider. Narcissists may give money, but will not be intimate, will not be supportive, will not be a good friend, or a good husband, or a good wife. Half of all narcissists are women, to be clear. So sooner or later, the sources of supply go away, and the supply dissipates. And sooner or later, the narcissist would have to self-supply. And if the self-supply fails, he would need to change the type of narcissist he is. That's not easy. If all your life you were a cerebral narcissist, and you obtained narcissistic supply by pretending to be a genius, by writing things, with your intellectual pyrotechnics, it's not easy to transition from this to becoming a sex symbol. Not very easy. So And it's very dangerous because as a sex symbol, self-styled sex symbol, you may be rejected. There's a higher likelihood of being rejected. And as you're rejected, this is narcissistic injury. Could even become narcissistic mortification if you approach someone publicly and she rejects you, she tells you you're ugly, you're repulsive. That's mortification. So the risks accumulate and the certainty deteriorates and it becomes more and more difficult, and collapse is inevitable. Ultimately, it ends with collapse. There's no way, once you have lost your sources of supply, you must go through collapse. The collapse allows you to, on the one hand, it's a horrible phase. Collapse could lead pretty easily to psychosis, psychotic micro-episodes, they're called. Collapse is a sense of annihilation, a sense that you vanished completely, you don't exist. And
you
then
don't feel your being.
There's no self-concept. The self-concept disappeared. The minute the self-concept is invalidated, disappears, nothing is left. The minute the false self fell apart, disintegrated, there is no true self. There's nothing left behind the false self. So you are not. It's an experience of dissipating. There is a famous painting by Dali, Salvador Dali, Galatea, where she disintegrates into molecules. There's a face of a woman, and then half of the face becomes molecules.
Pieces. Yeah.
Molecules, like small balls in the air. And this is how the narcissist experiences collapse. He disintegrates, he disappears, he has a sense of vanishing, of annihilation, which is a very good description of the inner experience of the psychotic. So it's a kind of psychotic phase. And then the survival instinct forces the narcissist to reinvent himself and reacquire sources of narcissistic supply, and the cycle starts again. He usually at this stage moves to a new environment, physically, moves to a new environment.
Changes places.
He changes locations, jobs,
Friends maybe.
relationships, friends, everything starts from zero. This is called pathological narcissistic space. So he creates a new space physically. And he starts from zero. If he moves from his job, where he was disgraced, he was exposed, he was humiliated, he was punished, he moves to a new job, no one knows him there, and he can again pretend to be a genius, and the story starts from zero. He acquires new sources, and this is the narcissistic cycle. This is what they go through all the time.
And can I ask something? When you said that at the age of 3 they choose false self, but until that time they know that false self is another one and he is another one or she is another one. Do any narcissist remember that time, that there is a duality?
No, but it remains in the unconscious, of course. All our experiences remain in the unconscious. Until age 5, more or less, 3 to 5, depending on the individual, there is a psychological phenomenon which is known as infantile amnesia. Infantile amnesia means you don't remember what happened to you as a child. And that's very lucky for the narcissist. But the formation of the false self is a reaction to failure of separation individuation. It happens between the ages of 18 months and 36 months, where there is infantile amnesia. The false self is created because the true self is not allowed to become. The mother, usually, mostly the mother, does not allow the child to separate from her and to grandiosely explore the world. And by exploring the world, by getting friction and conflict with other kids, with physical objects.
But until 3 years old, no baby interacts with another baby generally.
No, not true at all.
It's a very early age.
No, not true. The interactions of babies with other babies start around the age of 18 months, and there are even studies that show that babies react to other babies starting at age 5 months. But between 18 and 36 months, babies already definitely explore the world. They leave mommy and they walk a few steps away and then run back to mommy. And they definitely are aware and interact with peers. But the child who becomes a narcissist is not allowed to do any of these things. It is the feedback from reality. It is the clash with other babies, infants. It's the interaction with physical objects, being wounded, falling. All these create the realization that there is me and not me. If you're as a baby, you run and you bang against the table and you fall, that second you understand that the table is not you. Not you.
Okay, I understand it.
If you interact with another peer, with another infant, that minute you understand it's not you. The realization that there is me and not me, internal and external, is critical for the formation of the self. The self is formed through this realization that there is me and not me. And the first agent of selfhood is the mother. The main job of the mother is to push the child away. Mothers think, wrongly, that the main job of the mother is to hug. Hugging is bad. I mean, not hugging, all hugging, but hugging constantly. Holding the child close to you is bad. You need to push the child away from you as a good mother, the good enough mother. You push the child away so that the child can explore the world.
You can't push a child by love.
Not push physically, but push the child away mentally. Encourage the child. Encourage the child. Communicate to the child that it is safe to go away. You will not punish him for going away. You will not punish the child for abandoning you as a mother. You can abandon me. It's okay. Go play with others or explore the physical world. Many mothers are insecure and immature. So when the baby walks a few steps, they're terrified, call the baby babe. Or when they feel betrayed by the baby. They feel betrayed that the baby is no longer interested in them. They want to play. And so these kind of mothers who are narcissistic, selfish, depressive, immature, insecure, these kind of mothers don't allow the child to effectively separate. It is only by separating and conflicting with reality, only by suffering loss and damage and pain, that we become us. Only when you crush against reality, only then you realize, reality is not me, so I am me. I am me, that's the self. In children who become narcissists, this never happens. Because they are not allowed to interact with reality, they don't form boundaries. What is a boundary? When you say a boundary, I have boundaries. What is a boundary? Boundary is, I stop here, the world begins there. The world stops here, and I begin. That's a boundary. These kind of children cannot develop boundaries. So there's no boundary, no self, no process. The process of constellation and integration of the self fails. The irony is that narcissists don't have a self. They are selfless. The irony is that
they don't have ego then.
That's the irony. We say narcissists are egotists. No. Narcissists have big ego, we say, yeah? Narcissists have a big ego. No.
Fragile.
Narcissists have no ego. That's the problem. It's not that they have a big ego. They have no ego. They have no self, no sense of self. And because they have no sense of self, they take yourself and his self. They take the selves of many people and they put these selves together to create imitation of a self. It's a hive mind. It's a mind that is made from one piece from you, one piece from him, one piece from...
And it changes.
It's a mosaic.
Sometimes.
Mosaic, kaleidoscope. Any?
And it changes sometimes because everyone knows the narcissist differently.
Narcissist?
Everyone knows the narcissist different. For example, some friends know him hardworking, some friends know him good. He or she changes his behaviors, I think.
In different environments, the narcissist would adopt
everyone adopts different methods.
Yes, in different environments, the narcissist would adopt different strategies to extract narcissistic supply. This is part of what we call self-efficacy. The narcissist knows that to extract supply in the workplace, he needs to do some things. And to extract supply in intimate relationships, he needs to do other things. Of course, in the workplace, he will pretend to be a hard worker to get praise. In intimate relationships, he will pretend to be empathic and loving. So the strategy for extracting supply change according to the environment, and the false self has many, many facets. It's a multifaceted. There is a narrative. There is a narrative, but the narrative includes many, many aspects of the personality, many elements. So the narrative of a narcissist whose false self is a genius, let's say. That narrative will not only be I'm a genius, because if you're a genius, you can obtain supply in the workplace. You can obtain supply in an interview, but you cannot obtain supply by being genius from your wife.
Yeah.
So false self is what we call a total narrative. It's a personality, what we call personality. It's a substitute personality. So yes, of course, narcissists will show different faces to different people.
And they know where to show which one.
It's reflexive. It's not the narcissist.
Automatic.
Now I'm in the workplace. Now I'll be a genius. No,
it's like persons. Like
the narcissist is a predator. It's an animal. It's reacting to the environment the way an animal does. It's totally reflexive. It's not like you would say the bee is constructing the beehive because it's a good engineer. It is sitting at home with computer and saying, wait a minute, what's the maximum? No, the bee is constructing the beehive because it's a bee. The narcissist, whatever the narcissist does, even the abuse, it's programmed, it's hardwired into the system. It is in this sense, narcissists are much closer to artificial intelligence and computers and robots than to human beings. Much closer. If you take away empathy, narcissists have no affective empathy, they have no emotional empathy. If you take away the ability to experience positive emotions, narcissists can experience only negative emotions, never positive. Narcissists can experience what we call negative affects.
Just negative emotions.
Just negative. Only rage, anger, hatred, envy, but they can never experience, for example, love. So they experience only negative emotion. If you take away these capabilities, let me ask you, in which sense are you human?
I don't know.
If you're not empathic, if you never experience positive emotions, if you are...
I never think of
If you're very rigid in the way you react, you're programmed, you're algorithmic. In which sense are you human? I don't think they're fully human. I know it's politically incorrect to say this, but I don't think narcissists are fully human. I think narcissists are much, 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 much closer to a highly sophisticated, highly complex system of artificial intelligence. And so the question is wrong. Not your question, this question is wrong. Because people assume that narcissists make choices, that they're deliberate, that there is premeditation and planning, and they're confusing psychopaths with narcissists. You could have a psychopath and a narcissist, and they would behave identically. The etiology, the psychodynamics, the background are completely different. A psychopath might pretend that he's a genius, but he knows he's not a genius. He can tell the difference between reality and fantasy.
He's aware of this.
Of course, he's faking, he's playing, he's play acting in order to obtain some goal. Once he obtains the goal, forget about it. He will not continue to pretend that he's genius. A psychopath is not emotionally invested.
But the narcissist will continue.
Of course, always. That's who he is. That's his identity. The psychopath uses a mask. He needs a mask of a genius. He will wear it, he will take your money, and he will throw it away. The psychopath, the narcissist will never throw it away. The mask is the narcissist. In the psychopath, there is someone behind the mask. In the narcissist, there is no one behind the mask.
I think the people in the society mixes narcissism and psychopathy.
Very huge.
They think that they are all narcissists, but now I understand that some actions which are told are just psychopathic.
Psychopath is planning, is cunning, is scheming. He has a plan, he has a goal, he knows how to get there, he knows which personality...
Morals?
No, he doesn't have moral. He knows which personality he has to assume to obtain the goal. He is an actor. He's acting. Talented Mr. Ripley in Talent is a psychopath. He's an actor. The narcissist is not acting. The narcissist is the role. He is the role. Take away the role.
That's why he gets afraid or gets anxious when the mask is going to fall down. Because
It's not, yes, because once the mask falls down, there's nothing there. I keep saying that the narcissist is an absence masquerading as a presence. Whereas the psychopath is a presence masquerading as a presence. So that's why I keep saying that, in my view, psychopathy is not mental illness. Narcissism is a severe, catastrophic mental illness. I think narcissism, and I'm not alone, Otto Kernberg, who is the father of the field, he believed the same, what I'm saying. I think narcissism is second only to psychosis, schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is the worst, but after schizophrenia, narcissism definitely is.
Because narcissists can act socially correct, but behind it's like psychopathy.
Psychotic.
Psychotic.
He's psychotic. Narcissist is psychotic.
I think the difference is this.
Yeah, I will show you one feature that is common to narcissism and psychosis. The psychotic person has, and when I say psychotic, that is a family of disorders. The most famous is schizophrenia, but there are many other types of psychosis. And so the psychotic person has a dynamic called hyperreflexivity. Hyperreflexivity is when the psychotic person confuses the internal with the external. So the psychotic person has a voice inside his mind, but it's not in my mind, it's coming from there. It's outside. Or the psychotic person has an image hallucination, image. He says, it's not image, it's real. I see the devil is there, I see it. It's not in my mind. And when you say to the psychotic person, but there is nobody there, so you're mentally ill, you're sick, you don't see. Or you're not capable of seeing. So the psychotic person confuses the internal world with the external world. Same with narcissist. Narcissist confuses the external world with the internal world. When a narcissist looks at you, you don't exist outside. You exist inside. You are an internal object. So narcissism is the mirror of psychosis. Psychosis, something is happening. Psychosis is confusion between internal object and external object. Narcissism, confusion of external with internal. But
So
it's psychosis.
they can act normal in the social life, or we think that they are normal in the social life.
Yes, they continue to interact with internal objects. They don't recognize that you are external or that you are separate. But this internal object represents you. Whereas in classic psychosis, the internal object doesn't represent reality. It's totally internal. In classic psychosis. In narcissistic psychosis, if you wish, the internal object represents you. It's very much like you. So much like you that you are deceived. You think the narcissist is talking to you. But he's not talking to you. He's talking to your representation in his mind. He's talking to your avatar.
When I talk to him, then he understands it as if I told him, or is he talking with the internal?
The internal object is talking, not you. People don't understand that. Even scholars don't understand this.
Then sometimes think that me is getting different from the internal object.
Yes.
In time. And of course, the narcissist maybe think that I'm lying to him because the internal object is different and I'm different.
Yes. Not only that
then he feels deceived.
Yes. Not only that you're lying, but that you're malicious, you're malevolent, you're doing it on purpose.
Because they are different.
Yes. When you deviate or diverge from the internal object is fixated. So the narcissist, when he sees you for the first time, he takes a photo of you, snapshot. He internalizes this photo. He puts it in the archive, in the library. There's a library, and you become a photo in this library. And then he photoshops the photo. This is idealization. The snapshot of the photo is known as introject. So he creates an introject of you, an internal object that represents you. The internal object looks exactly like you. Exactly. It's a photograph.
Physical.
Yes, it's a photograph. It's a video even. It's not even a photograph, it's a video. So it talks like you, moves like you, looks like you, and everything. And then he photoshops it, he idealizes you, photoshops it. And then once this internal object is photoshopped or idealized, it's fixated.
Never changes.
It never changes. It's fixated.
But I change.
But you change.
Yeah.
You make your own decisions, you disagree, you criticize, you walk away, you have your own friends, you have your family, you travel, you make money, you have new interests and new hobbies.
Here is very important.
And the minute you show any sign of independence, of agency, decision making, or personal autonomy, you don't have to disagree with the narcissist, you just have to live. The minute you show signs of life, you deviate, you diverge from the internal object, you contradict it, you put it in question. And this is very threatening to the narcissist because he doesn't live outside, he lives inside. And he begins to resent you. He begins to hate you for doing this. He asks, why is she doing this? Why is she, not she, why is she misbehaving? Why is she fuzzy? Why is she moving? She's not supposed to move. She's supposed to be fixed. Why does she disappear? It's like a baby. When mother leaves the room, baby starts to cry. So we call it object constancy. Why? So anytime you are independent, in any way, the narcissist makes coffee, you make tea. That's independence. That's a challenge to the internal object, you know? So anything you do, the fact that you're alive, I'm not kidding, you're alive, that's it, enough. That is a challenge to the internal object, and the narcissist has to explain to himself why the internal object is misbehaving, not you. You don't exist anymore. But why the internal object is misbehaving. And so the narcissist needs to develop a theory, what's happening. And he says, well, that internal object is malicious, malevolent, or frustrating. So he becomes aggressive, because you're frustrating. Or that internal object has aspects that I was not aware of, so he becomes paranoid. He becomes paranoid, like there's new information. The reaction is never good. Could be a paranoia, aggression, but never good. And you cannot help it. There's no way you can help it, because the very fact that you live and exist challenges the internal object. I always say that the ideal partner of a narcissist is ancient Egyptian mummy. That's the ideal part. A mummy from Egypt, you know?
And ancient.
Ancient, of course. Egyptian mummy. That's the ideal, because she will never contradict the internal object. And of course there is the famous movie by Hitchcock, Psycho, where there is Norman Bates. Norman Bates has a mother, and he killed her. He's a narcissist. He killed his mother, he mummified her, he embalmed her, and every evening he goes up, she's up, he has a motel, and on the second floor his mother lives. She's dead, she's a body. He killed her and embalmed her, and she looks like she's alive. So he goes up every evening, he puts her to bed, he kisses her. Every morning he goes up,
and he talks with
he washes her. He washes her. He washes mommy. He puts her in a chair facing the window so that she's not bored. It's a body. And for him, she exists. She's alive. Because her internal object is active.
Is talking.
Is active. And the internal object of mommy is never contradicted by the external object of mommy. Because she's a mummy.
Nice, dead.
And this is the ideal partner for him. That's why whenever there's a woman that comes, he kills her. Because a woman that comes can challenge this internal balance, this harmony inside his mind.
Yeah.
And that's the movie Psycho. In the movie Psycho, there's a woman that comes to this motel, and Norman Bates kills her in the shower, the famous shower scene of Psycho. And all this is extremely difficult for people to understand.
I read so many forums and I saw some sentences that is used in every occasion. For example, they say you attack me when you say something, not criticizing, but when you say something. Now I understand that you attack me means you are attacking my fantasy.
Yes.
Or
You're undermining the internal object. You're challenging it. You're destroying it.
or they don't want to discuss the subjects with you because there is no subject there.
There are two things here. The narcissist creates a fantasy, and he shares this fantasy with you by converting you into an internal object. So initially the narcissist creates a fantasy. He's inviting you to the fantasy. If you agree to join the fantasy, you're converted into internal object. But in the narcissist's mind, it's a paradise.
Everything is perfect.
Everything is
So
perfect.
What do you want to discuss?
And whatever you're doing, you're destroying paradise.
Yes.
This is horrible. Why are you doing this? We're so happy together. We're so perfect together. Why are you destroying everything? You know, either you're stupid. That's devaluation. You're stupid, or you're evil. And if you're stupid, I don't want you. And if you're evil, you need to be punished. So these are the only explanations, because only a stupid person would destroy paradise. Only evil person would destroy paradise. Why?
You like drama.
Why are you doing this? But there's another thing is that many human interactions and human communications, which are perceived by normal people as positive, are perceived by the narcissist as highly negative. For example, if you want to help the narcissist, just help. This is narcissistic injury. Because if you're offering help to the narcissist, means that he is not God. He needs help. He's not perfect.
Not good for the shared fantasy, for him.
The minute you offer help, you are driving, both of you are in the car, narcissist and you, and you're in a strange city. You went to another city, and you need to find some address. Okay? So you're sitting next to the narcissist. Narcissist is driving the car, and he lost his way. He cannot find the address. And you say, honey, let me look at the GPS, and I will tell you where this is. Attack. You're attacking him.
And he thinks that it's an
He
attack.
says, you're attacking him because he's God. He knows everything. He is all-powerful. And when you say you need help, means, first of all, I'm superior to you. I can give you the help. Second thing, you need something, so you're not perfect. Because someone who is perfect doesn't need anything.
Yeah.
Help is perceived as attack, narcissistic injury. Similarly, if you tell the narcissist, let me give you an advice, it is an attack.
Who are you?
Who are you to give me advice? I don't need advice. I know everything. There's nothing I can learn. I'm perfect. I was doing this before you were born. You know, the reaction. So many forms of communication that are perceived to be as positive and empathic and care are perceived by the narcissist as direct attacks. And he will react very badly. Even in very extreme cases of narcissism, if you come to the narcissist and say good morning. So I'm not kidding. Narcissist can say, you think I need you to know that it's morning? You know? Do you think I need you to know that it's morning? The fact that you say good morning is perceived as challenging his omniscience, the fact that he knows everything. So in very extreme, this is a very extreme case, but I came across such cases, where any attempt to interact with a narcissist is perceived as insult.
Is the master narcissist?
Sorry?
Then he is a master narcissist. Grandioso.
It's super extreme, grandiose narcissist. This condition is called hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is the tendency to interpret everything you say as an insult, an attack, criticism, disagreement, undermining, challenging, everything. But everything you say, everything. I don't know. You come to the narcissist, you say, would you like some coffee? You know, would you like some coffee? Some narcissists would perceive this as insult, attack. It means that he doesn't know what he wants. You need to tell him what he wants. It means that he cannot make coffee. Why are you offering? I can make my own coffee. It's perceived as an attack. So no communication is possible with the narcissist. Even the most innocuous well-meaning communication is misinterpreted as attack. And this condition is known as hypervigilance. In extreme narcissists, hypervigilance develops into paranoid ideation. Paranoid ideation is when the narcissist constructs a theory about why you're communicating the way you're communicating, why you are behaving the way you're behaving, and he puts himself in the center. It's all about him. Whatever you're doing, it's because of him.
Or they can guess or predict the things you said, why you say that, even you didn't say that.
So this is paranoid ideation, when there is a loss of touch with reality.
Then there is narcissism, and there are branches inside it. Not just narcissism, paranoia and
you mean, yeah.
sociopathy,
No,
psychopathy.
Narcissists can develop behaviors and so on that belong to other mental illnesses. Yes.
Then I turn to the questions. There are so many questions, but I will choose inside of them.
We can have another session on narcissism tomorrow if you want.
Yeah, because there are more than 20, but I will choose. I like this question. How does the process of excessive idealization by a narcissistic individual work?
How the process of which idealization?
Excessive idealization. They idealize someone, and during this phase, how does extreme idealization shape their perception of themselves? For example, you idealize me because you idealize yourself. Is it like that?
Yes, it is like that. I described 30 years ago a process of co-idealization. I suggested at the time that idealization is not only about the other person, but the main reason the narcissist idealizes anyone is because by idealizing someone, they are actually idealizing themselves. It is very critical to understand that, and this is again where people keep failing and failing and failing, and even in this question, this failure is clear. There is the assumption that narcissists do things to other people, with other people. No, there are no other people. There are no other people. Can you?
Yeah, I can feel it a bit.
There
Just
is
me and just my needs, and there's no one.
There are no other people. When the narcissist idealizes you, he is idealizing himself through you. It's not about other people because there are no other people. In the narcissist's mind, only he exists. This is known in philosophy as Solipsism. Only the narcissist exists. Around the narcissist, there are potentials for internal objects. Potentials.
Not everyone is getting an
Not everyone
object.
becomes internal object. But people who are not internalized, people who are not introjected, they are perceived as shadows. They're nothing. They are air. They are definitely not there. I mean, narcissist sees through them. They're transparent. When they're converted into internal objects, they have some existence in the narcissist's mind. But when they're not converted, they don't exist at all. Like zero, completely zero. Whatever the narcissist does, confabulation, idealization, devaluation, discard, hoovering, everything the narcissist does, no exception, is about himself or herself only, has nothing to do with you. And so when the narcissist idealizes you, he idealizes you because by owning an idealized object, he elevates himself. If I own a luxury car, then I feel good about myself because I own a luxury car. If my wife or girlfriend is a drop-dead, gorgeous, stunning woman, it reflects on me. It means that I am attractive. I am irresistible.
Like an accessoire.
Yes, exactly. Like status symbol. Everyone is a status symbol. It doesn't have to be a drop-dead, gorgeous woman. It could be an intelligent person. Or something in the other person has to allow the narcissist to idealize himself, has to cater to the narcissist's need, to maintain a grandiose, inflated, counterfactual, unrealistic view of himself not of the other person, which explains why it's easy for the narcissist to transition from idealization to devaluation, like this.
In 1 second.
Yeah, easy. Because the idealization is not about the other person, it's an internal process, not an external process. And so people, victims especially of narcissistic abuse, they can't accept this. They ask themselves, why did this happen to me? Why was I singled out for abuse? Why was I mistreated this way? Why the cruelty and even the sadism of what has been done to me? And they say, it's because I'm special. I'm
And
special,
the
I've been
abuse
chosen.
is not 24 hours, but there are good days, there are bad days.
Yeah,
and
that has to do with another mechanism.
yeah. Can we
Intermittent.
talk this also?
Yeah.
Because
In a minute. So they ask why, and they say because I'm special. I was chosen. I'm super empathic. I'm kind. I'm nice. I'm this. I'm that. They aggrandize themselves. It's a narcissistic defense.
Yeah,
it's a narcissistic defense because only then what happened to them makes sense. That they were not like randomly chosen. Randomly, narcissists doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care if you're empathic. Narcissists cannot identify empathy in the others because they have no empathy in themselves. He doesn't care who you are.
Yeah.
He cares what you can give him. You have to give him 2 or 4 things. You have to give sex, services, supply, sadistic, narcissistic, and safety, like a mother. Always be there. That's all. If you give 2 of these 4, you're in. You also have to agree to participate in the shared fantasy and to support the shared fantasy, to tell the narcissist that the fantasy is real and his self-concept is realistic. The false self is not false. If you agree to these terms and conditions, you could be short, you could be tall, you could be beautiful, you could be ugly, you could be
Rich,
stupid
poor.
as a knight, you could be super intelligent, you could be professor, you could be a cleaning lady. It doesn't matter who you are and what you are. If you agree to these conditions, you're in. So narcissists are promiscuous. They're indiscriminate. They choose everyone to be a partner.
no, they don't choose people.
They don't choose based on your...
They don't have a type also.
They don't have a type, no. That's a myth. These are myths. This is because the victims need to make sense of what happened. There is no sense to what happened because everything happens inside the mind of the narcissist, never outside. So whatever happened to you was a byproduct, side effect of internal dynamics in the sick mind, the diseased mind of the narcissist, and these dynamics are inexorable. They're automatic, they're robotic, they're programmed. Even the narcissist is not aware of them and cannot help himself. He cannot stop. That's as simple as that. It's like asking yourself, why was I raped or why was I... What can you do? It's someone who needs to feel powerful and he finds the first woman. And we know, for example, that there is no type constancy among rapists. And there is no type constancy among serial killers. This is a myth. It's not true. There is the same method. Serial killers use the same method. So if they kill with a knife, they typically kill with a knife. But the victims are very different to each other. And so there's no type constancy. You're chosen randomly, just because you're there and just because you're willing to participate.
And in the shared fantasy, for example, you choose the fantasy and you choose to continue. And in the questions, people ask how to heal and why they choose the narcissist. And some of the women or men ask why we choose the narcissist. Because they are asking their types of neydi?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. I understand what you're asking. Yeah.
Anxious.
Yeah.
They are
I understand
asking
what you're
their type.
asking. But you asked another question and
Now I will continue this.
But you asked another question in the middle when I was talking and then
My brain stopped.
Yes, the stop.
Yes.
Okay, so I will answer this question that you asked. While the narcissist has no type constancy, he chooses anyone, if they fulfill his needs and they agree to participate in the fantasy.
It's so hurtful.
Huh?
It's so
Yeah.
hurtful.
But
for everyone.
the opposite is true. Certain types of people are attracted to narcissists. So the narcissist is indiscriminate. Anyone fits. But the opposite is not true. Only certain type of people are attracted to the narcissist. And these are people who are either vulnerable, situationally vulnerable, so people who had a crisis, a life crisis, for example. They had a divorce, or the death of a loved one, or they are vulnerable. They're a vulnerable stage of life. They're mentally healthy, but they've gone through a difficult period in life, and they are consequently open to the attack of the narcissist. So vulnerable people, or people with a specific psychological profile. So this could be codependent people, people with dependent personality disorder, people with borderline personality disorder, people pleasers, otherwise dependent people who are not codependent but dependent people, people who are attracted to self-confidence and charisma, and so people who are submissive by nature. They need a dominant figure. Inverted narcissists, these are covert narcissists who derive narcissistic supply through a main overt narcissist. So yes, it is true that only specific populations would be attracted to the narcissist.
Or continue to stay.
Or continue to stay. There is, in other words, there is a vulnerability to narcissism. There is vulnerability. Certain people are much more likely to be abused by narcissists and so on than other people. People who are totally mentally healthy, they have healthy boundaries, they have self-confidence, they have a stable sense of self-worth, self-esteem, they know themselves, good parts, bad parts. They've had a history which was never traumatic, and they grew up normally and so on and so forth, and they are not in a life crisis. They are in a stable period they're not likely to be with narcissists. They will spot the narcissist immediately, and they will have the uncanny valley reaction. Uncanny valley reaction everyone has. Everyone who comes across a narcissist, or a psychopath by the way, has uncanny valley reaction. Uncanny valley was first described in 1970 by a roboticist, a Japanese roboticist, of course, Japanese, Masahiro Mori. And uncanny valley, Masahiro Mori said that when robots will become indistinguishable from people, the only defense, the only way we will know that these are robots is we would feel uncomfortable. We would have uncanny feeling, and he called it the uncanny valley. He said when robots don't resemble people, we know that they are robots and we don't feel uncomfortable. But when we will know that we cannot tell the difference between robots and people, we'll be very anxious. How do we know it's a robot? Maybe you're a robot. Maybe you're not a robot. I would feel uncomfortable with you. And this is uncanny valley. The same reaction you have when you meet a narcissist the first time. Same reaction.
For example, I'm sitting here now, and when you look at me, can you understand if I'm narcissist or psychopath or sociopath? There are three.
I don't.
Which one is easier to understand in the
Narcissist by
first
far.
meet?
Narcissist by far. The uncanny valley reaction with narcissist is very strong. It's immediate. It's the first few seconds. It's very strong. But what happens is, many people deny it. They deny it. They say something's
You
wrong.
felt danger when we meet them?
It's not danger. It's
Something strange.
something wrong with them. They are not put well together. They're not assembled together well.
We can feel it then.
Yeah, there's an off-key something. Music is wrong. Something doesn't fit. Like someone assembled a narcissist on some factory, but they put the narcissist wrongly.
But it looks good.
But it looks okay, but you feel that it's not working well. Something not working well. We have this with machines also, with devices. If you buy a new smartphone, and that particular smartphone that you bought has some defect, you feel the defect immediately. When you open it, you feel, even if it looks like... So we have this ability to detect defects. And it is a defect in manufacturing with the narcissist. He doesn't have a full-fledged self. And so all human beings have this reaction with narcissists. But what happens is we deny it. We say something's wrong with me. I'm having a bad day. Or, okay, maybe he has some bad aspects, but he has some good aspects. Or I'm lonely. I will overlook this. I'm lonely. I need to be with someone. Or it's socially unacceptable to say to someone, you are defective. So you stay. I invested so much until I meet this person. I will stay.
And you start to see the things I think after you start to get in love or get in touch too much.
Yes.
Because in the 3-4 months you can never understand, except the instinct feeling.
Yes, that's exactly the distinction. You do know everything.
Yes.
You know
But
everything.
there is no evidence for
You
it.
know everything probably after 15 seconds. I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah, yes.
You know, if immediately you know something's wrong.
You know it, but
You know
there is
something.
no evidence for it.
But the reason you're looking for evidence because you don't want it to be true. You don't want it to be true. You want to say to yourself, I'm feeling something is wrong, but the problem is with me.
Mm-hmm.
My feeling is wrong.
Yes.
My feeling is wrong. Here's a fact, and it's a fact. When it comes to reality, don't trust your intuition. Your intuition about reality is 50% of the time wrong, like flipping of a coin. These are studies. Intuition about external reality is 50% of the time wrong. It's not a good basis for decision making. But when it comes to other people, your intuition is above 90% right. Not about the situation, but other people. Your intuition is 90% right. If you feel uncomfortable, even minimally, walk away. You can rely on your
Don't need
intuition.
evidence.
Don't wait for evidence. Don't wait to get too close, because when you get too close, there is bonding, there is attachment, there is maybe love.
And after that, I think cognitive dissonance starts.
And after
because,
that, yes?
You feel bad, but but everything is good. For
Yes,
example.
this is called buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse is a phenomenon in psychology. I bought a smartphone, okay? I bought a smartphone. And then I discover this smartphone sucks. I don't have these functions, but I will never tell to myself it was a wrong decision. Rarely. Because if I say it's a wrong decision, I mean I'm stupid. So it creates cognitive dissonance. And then I say, oh no, it's a great phone. Maybe it doesn't have this feature, but it has this feature. I'm building a narrative where my decision to buy the phone was 100% the correct decision. This is called buyer's remorse. When you buy another person, when you have a relationship with another person, you will build a case. You will build a scenario where your decision was 100% right. Absolutely the right decision. Yes, there are negative aspects, positive aspects, but overall, you made the right choice. It's always like that. Even with children, forget now, you have children. One of your children is an asshole, not a nice person, not kind, abuses you, mistreats you. It's your child. You will create a narrative where you will still love your child. Of course, this is most evident when you have a new baby. 1/3 of women who have a newborn, a child, 1/3, have postpartum depression. We used to lie to ourselves and we used to say that postpartum depression is a rare phenomenon. It's not a rare phenomenon. It's 1/3 of the cases. So why do only 5% of women report postpartum depression? Why not 1/3? Because they lie to themselves. They idealize the baby. They idealize the baby. All mothers idealize babies. We know that. We have studies. They all idealize the baby. Of course, the famous mother who says, hey, cute. Isn't it the most beautiful baby you ever saw? When it's the ugliest baby ever. You know. The idealization process of the mother is an example of cognitive dissonance in action. Why? Because to raise a baby sucks. It's the most horrible job on earth. I prefer to be working in a mine. I know that because I raised my brothers and sister. I have experience. I'm talking from experience. It's a disaster. It's a horrible thing. You can't sleep, you can't think, it's really catastrophic. So if there was no mechanism of idealization to resolve the cognitive dissonance, most mothers would dump the baby somewhere and go away. So we need this. Same mechanism is in action when you are with the narcissist, because then one of the reasons is the narcissist is a child, is a baby. Any narcissist, 64-year-old narcissist is a baby. 24-year-old narcissist is a baby. They're all babies. And your reaction to the narcissist is a maternal reaction. Even if you don't realize it, even if it's a colleague, not a love interest also, and he's a narcissist, your reaction is reflexive, is a maternal reaction. And maternal reaction goes hand in hand with resolving the cognitive dissonance, idealization as a solution.
You feel it.
Yeah. So you ignore. Additionally, the narcissist uses something called again. Doesn't use it intentionally like the psychopath, but uses it reflexively, unconsciously, automatically, robotically. He uses something known as intermittent reinforcement. Intermittent reinforcement is hot and cold. I love you, I hate you.
Yes,
Very good time, unbelievably good time, spectacularly good time, and horribly abusive time. So,
which one is true? So you
which one is
continue
true?
to
And you learn also to expect remediation, to expect the fixing of the situation from this. So if the narcissist hurt you, he is the only one who can take the pain away. If the narcissist, for example, betrayed you, cheated on you with another woman, he is the only one who can make it well. He is the only one who can remedy the situation by choosing you again. So he has the key. He who caused you pain, he who hurt you, he who harmed you, he has the key to heal you and to cure you and to make you feel whole and good again. This monopoly on what we call remediation is the key feature of intermittent reinforcement. If I love you today and hate you tomorrow, only I can love you again. I have the monopoly, the key. It doesn't help if someone else will love you. You need me to love you because I caused you the pain. Another person's love will not cure this particular pain. It will remain. So gradually, the narcissist, using intermittent reinforcement, begins to be the main source of internal regulation. He controls your moods. He controls your emotions. He controls what you're thinking. And then he controls your access to reality. He becomes your reality testing. He isolates you socially. He cuts you off from the family, he cuts you off from friends. Financially and so on. He creates a total environment. And in this total environment, you can access reality only through him. He is your reality testing. He is your agent to reality. His opinions become your opinions. How he sees the world becomes how you see the world. His point of view becomes your point of view. His judgments become your judgments.
Extensions of
yes, you become
of him, and he is.
You finally become the internal object that he wanted you to be.
And you start to feel like internal object.
Yes, he deanimates you. He takes away your vitality. He takes away your life. He wants you to be a mummy. He wants you to be a mummy. So he takes away your agency, your efficacy, your autonomy, your independence, your social support network. He isolates you and he reduces you. We call this process constriction.
He does it consciously?
No, I said at the beginning. This is robotically.
These are super intelligent acts.
Even biological entities are super intelligent. Microbes, viruses are super intelligent. You remember our previous conversation? Intelligence has nothing to do with consciousness. These are super intelligent activities that have nothing to do with awareness or consciousness or introspection. This is layer one of the cake, the computational. These are computational activities. That's why I keep saying narcissists are machines.
He starts to eat you, so you are getting inside.
It's a machine. It's a machine that devours people, consumes people, converts them into internal objects, and then continues to interact with the internal objects and manipulate them for internal reasons in order to gratify or satisfy some narrative. You in the process disappear. Ideally, in the eyes of the narcissist, you disappear as external object and appears internal. Because initially you conflict with the internal object, the narcissist needs to take away your capacity to contradict the internal object by isolating you, by deanimating you, by deactivating you, by disabling you, so it gradually reduces you. And we have a name for this process. It's called constriction. The clinical term is constriction. He constricts you until finally you're in catatonic state. If you want then to act, you do it through the narcissist. The narcissist becomes your agency, your external agency. And so then, if you want to make a decision, you consult the narcissist first. You ask him, what do you think about it? Should I do it? Should I not do it? Do you agree to make coffee?
They are making the decisions
Yes,
for you.
100%. You're reduced to zero. Everything is done. And if you want to understand what is real, what is not, you ask the narcissist. It reminds me of the sentence, if I want your opinion, I will give it to you. You know? Yeah. Or I had a lawyer, Ram Kaspi, he was the greatest lawyer in Israel. And in my previous incarnation, I was a businessman and I had many, many lawsuits and so on. One day I came to him and said, because I'm highly analytical, so I came to him and said, listen, if we analyze this and this and this law, he said, Sam, calm down. I've made up my mind. Don't confuse me with the facts. You know? So this is narcissism, more or less. There is a single space, and this single space is the narcissist's mind. Everything must disappear. Reality must disappear, not only you. Mm-hmm. He is doing to reality what he's doing to you. He is taking away the efficacy and agency and autonomy and independence of reality, not only you, all of reality. He is converting all of reality into a movie. He sees himself also as an actor in a movie, mm-hmm. and you're an actress or a prop in a movie. He's directing the movie. And imagine that you're directing a movie and the actress comes and says, I don't agree with the script. I don't want to say this sentence. I want to say this sentence.
No.
What the hell? You're fired.
The shared fantasy.
You're fired.
Yes,
you know?
you're fired.
Think of it as a movie. The movie is a perfect analogy for shared fantasy. And you're an actress. You have a script, rigid script. You can't, no, I don't want to. This is not improvisation. These are very rigid scripts. Actually, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual defines personality disorders as rigid. Mm-hmm. They're rigid. The shared fantasy starts from A, devaluation, mm-hmm. Idealization, love bombing and so on, continues to B, devaluation continues to C, discount, and it goes like a machine. The narcissist is a hostage and captive of the shared fantasy. The ruler, the god of the whole situation is not the narcissist, it's the shared fantasy.
And when you internalized the shared fantasy, you can't leave it because the reality is different from the shared fantasy.
When you leave the shared fantasy, for example, because the narcissist discarded you, or because you discarded the narcissist, mm-hmm. which is more rare, when you leave the shared fantasy, you feel that reality is not real. It's not a fantasy. Reality doesn't look real. You have to convince yourself that reality is real, that other people are real, that when people tell you some things, whatever they're saying is correct and realistic. And that's why many victims are still initially defensive of the fantasy. So when you come to a victim initially, after that mm-hmm. victims wake up. But in the initial phase, in the immediate phase, 2-3 days, when you come to a victim and says, you know, you've been abused or the fantasy or he's not a genius. Let's say, mm-hmm. okay, you come to the victim and say, listen, and the victim says, I've been abused, it was horrible, and you say, yeah, he's not a genius. No, he's a genius.
You corrected.
She would protect the fantasy. So she may agree with you that she's been abused. She may agree with you that she'll be, mm-hmm. But if you dare to attack the false self, she will protect the false self. She will say, no, he is a genius. Still, the victim is one leg in the fantasy and one leg in reality. Tomorrow we can discuss healing process.
Yes, we must discuss it, and we will continue from this part tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.